With my newly acquired 3D printer, I've been having a lot of fun printing these Bakugan models online. Here's one of Makubus, one of the Vexos mechanical Bakugan, which is going to kind of set the theme for this video. So we have that one. We have Dryoid here, so another Vexos mechanical Bakugan. I really like this one. It's got a lot of little intricate pieces. The hands kind of move, but not for these. None of these are actually closable. They're going to be display only, but it does come with this like little cannon piece, which I think is super cool. But with resin printing, they're not something that's going to be able to close. They're going to be display only. We have Boraedes here. I'm kind of curious, should I keep this one in the gray or should I paint him white like in the show? Not really sure yet. You'll have to let me know. And then of course, today's main theme is going to be Mach Spider. So we're going to be focusing on him today. This was one of Shadow's Bakugan, and we're going to be painting him today. This all comes from this person here. This is on Thingiverse online, and they have all of these models right here. All of these are anime accurate except for the Illuse, I believe. The Illuse down there is called Stratus Illuse. It's like a fan custom made Bakugan, but I'll leave the link to his page in the description below so that you can take a look at what they've got. Now, before you start painting, you're gonna obviously have to print this. If you don't have a printer, you'll have to find someone to print it for you. There's a bunch of different types. I ended up going with this one right here. It's got a hollow center, which I'll explain in a second, but some of them have little leg spikes, some of them don't. It really is just a preference and what will print best on your printer. This is a pretty challenging print. I ended up printing this guy probably 6 times, and on my 6th attempt, I finally got something that was like manageable. First thing you're gonna do is take that down to 90% size, so it's actually B2. This is in the descriptions of the file settings. Now, if you see this yellow here, that means it's hollow, and we're actually going to need to hollow it out here. So I'm going to poke a hole right here. This will go back in the Bakugan later. All you do is pop it right back in or sand it down or fill it with something. But this keeps the top half lighter so that it doesn't topple the Bakugan over, so it doesn't fall onto its back. It just makes it lighter. From there, you're going to do all sorts of settings. So the orientation is entirely up to you. For resin printing, you need to do it at an angle, so a 45-degree angle. I found that this was the best angle right here. Not that one, this one right here. And it seemed to work very well for my test prints, and then you add your supports. I always like to start with the auto support and then go in and hit areas where I think need more. One thing I didn't do in my initial print, you'll see later, is I did not add supports down into this center base right here. I would add as many as you can here. This part seems to be prone to collapsing, as well as parts of the head. Just add them there, and then any of the front feet, so where I'm looking at right here, I would highly recommend adding supports there as well, to make sure that those pieces don't collapse while printing. Now, unfortunately, this one printed around midnight, so it was dark, but I do have the other couple Bakugan I printed to see, so that's kind of what it looks like coming out. And if you don't know who Mach Spider is, he is one of Shadow's Bakugan from New Vestroia. Shadow's most known for having the like Alpha Hydronoid of Season 2, Hades, and he's known most for his infamous scene fighting Alpha Hydronoid and Fortress. Yeah, this is kind of how Mach Spider's introduced for the first time, and when we actually really get to see what we're dealing with and how we're planning on painting it. So you can see here he's clearly a spider, a very giant spider, but he's got a darkest color palette. You see the different greens, reds, and silvers, which are going to be the primary focus of this paint. He's got a lot of cool features like using his webs and legs to attack. Here's another shot of Mach Spider in ball form just to kind of see what we're working with there. Really cool Bakugan, a lot of intricate details. I can kind of understand why we didn't get an actual toy form of it, just because of how difficult that would be to make into a toy form, I guess. But at the same time, I feel like it's possible. It's just very intricate for the most part. But of course, this is one of the final scenes with Mach Spider as Helios ends up destroying him in one of probably the coolest ways ever. I'll play it right here. Yeah, probably one of the most crazy death scenes we've had in the show. I don't remember that from my initial watch, and looking back at it now, I'm still kind of in shock. There's even the cool explosion. Turn away from it, you can see shadows just completely what just happened. So anyways, with that out of the way, now we know who Mock Spider is, I'm going to be showing you how you can paint your very own to look something like this. Let's jump into it. To begin, I started looking for references online. I ended up leaning pretty heavily on the one on the right, which I now learned doesn't show the horn or some of the metal spikes around the mouth. So those are left out in my initial paint. Probably will go back and fix those, but just keep that in mind as you're following this tutorial. There are some metal pieces, so that's where we're going to start. Before we begin, here are a couple of different things that I used. I all used the same kind of paint. This is like a Craftsmart. It's from Michaels, I believe, but I used a green, that particular red, two different types of purple, the darker purple and the pink right there, which I actually end up substituting later for a lavender, this Gundam marker, and I also use a gray, same from that Michaels paint. So to start, the first thing I do is the dark purple on these particular spots using my reference photos. Normally with this, I like to thin my paints in water. Normally that just looks like putting some paint on a paper plate, dipping my brush in water so that it is more like liquidy than it is thick. But because we're not priming this model at all, we're painting right on the resin, I need the paint to be a bit thicker. So my initial coat is going to be not really wetted down at all. I'm just filling it in to see what it's going to look like. I do come back in later with water and thin that out and make it look a bit flatter. And because what happens is things get kind of chunky with that paint. I know it's blurry, you can't see much here. But if you do happen to mess up with this paint, it's nice because you can just wipe it off. If this was primed, as you can see, I accidentally hit it with my thumb, but it'll come completely off. So the best thing about this is that if it was primed, we wouldn't really be able to do this. But because it's not, it'll wipe right off and we can start again. So it's great for trial and error. So there is some of the front finished. It's not perfect and it doesn't have to be. We'll be adding more layers. Here's me working on the back. Again, this is that same purple, but I decided to actually thin this paint out. And pretty much for the rest of the video, the rule is going to be first coat thin, second coat thin, third coat thin, and we're not going to worry too much about those mess ups because we can touch them up later. I'll show you how. This is a great process because it's just water and paint. It dries super quick. Normally by a half hour later, 30-45 minutes, it's completely dry and you can paint the next layer. If it's a smaller area, sometimes it takes even less time. And we're just going to keep repeating this process until we have about, I believe for me, it was roughly anywhere between 4 to 6 layers, depending on where I was painting to get it to where I wanted it to be. All right, and we are back fully painted, and I have my friend isopropyl alcohol. So if you've messed up, you've gone outside the lines, it's bound to happen. All you need to take is a Q-tip with some isopropyl alcohol. Less is usually better, and just wipe down those edges, and the paint comes right off. And you might mess up your paint a little bit. You might need to do a couple touch-ups. I think I show that later in this video. But all you're gonna do is wipe those edges clean. You can use the other side of the Q-tip to actually wipe the excess away. And you're just gonna follow the black lines to get them nice and straight. It's a really easy process. Just try to avoid getting it in like where you've painted. Even if you do, all you got to do is repaint it and you're good to go. So as you can see there, especially in the center, I've smudged it a little bit, got the paint off, but you can just repaint that and it's good to go. So there it is, looking pretty good. I'm pretty satisfied with how that looks. There's nothing outside of where it should be. I also chose to paint the bottom purple. It needs another layer. I'm not sure if that should be green or purple. There's not really any reference material for that. But up next, I decided to use this light lavender. If you don't have this color on you, you can probably just mix some purple and white together to get that. But this is going to go on the dots and then parts of the leg. As you can see here in the center, I'm trying to show it that the camera's very unfocused. My printer messed up here. If you take a look at the reference material, this should be like a complete circle. Again, this print was super challenging, so I'm just going to ignore that and do the best I can to actually paint. Here's me getting my phone light out so you can take a better look, but yeah, it's just not 100%. It did collapse a little bit. Probably could have put more supports there, but that would have taken another 6 hours worth of print time that I didn't really necessarily want to do. So let's jump into the next part of the paint, which again, I'm just going to kind of zoom through. It's the same process, painting over where you need to. Multiple layers, same deal as last time. Alright, and so then after a few layers, obviously we're left with some smudges because nobody's perfect. You can see one on that leg in particular is pretty bad. The other side also might need a couple touch-ups, and so we do our handy dandy trick with that isopropyl alcohol and a Q-tip and just wipe down all that excess. I start here with the main problem, and as you can see, it just wipes right away. It's very convenient, really awesome, and there is the finished product right there. Boom, fixed. After doing all those, we have this right here. Now you can see some of that paint on those spikes. I'm not worried about those. Those are going to turn red, so I'll paint right over them. But I'm pretty satisfied so far with how it's turning out. After you're satisfied with that, we're going to go in with the red and do the face and little spike pieces on the legs. I like this shot because you can really see what I mean by thin paint. It's very, very liquidy. I think the eyes took a couple coats. The red and the green definitely took between 5 and 6 coats each. But really getting in those thin lines. Again, it's okay if you mess up. You can just wipe away where you mess up. And then here's one of the spikes. The spikes do tend to take more just because the tips and stuff don't hold paint as well. So I think these did end up taking about 5 layers. I did go a little bit thicker on the paint here, but you can keep it thin. But you should have something like this when you're done. Really satisfied with how the red came out. And we can move into that lovely neon green color. Now the reference material has this like a clear. I don't really know if there's a way to do that. But again, you can just wipe off if you mess up. I didn't want to get on the sides there. I just went with a nice lime green to like make it stand out. And yeah, this took about 6 layers, I believe. And once that was done, I was pretty happy with how it turned out. You can see right here, looks super good. And we can go on to the final, which is the gray/metallic. Okay, so apparently for this shot, I did not actually film the painting. Instead, I filmed myself explaining what I was going to paint. But you can follow my paintbrush here. We're painting all these small little lines in between the legs. These are kind of tucked away everywhere. These spikes up here. And then there's going to be some like the little spikes on the bottom, which were particularly challenging to paint. I decided to paint these in a matte gray, just similar to my other paints, before going in with that metallic Gundam marker. So this is the final result of that metallic. As you can see, it's painted on all the different legs. Really not wanting to focus here, but again, that's just gray, and then the metallic painted over that to give it a little bit of a shine. to make it stand out a little bit more. And you can see there in between the pieces of the leg joints, that's painted as well. And once that's dry, you're basically finished. You have successfully painted your very own Mock Spider Bakugan. Congratulations. But we can take this a step further. I wanted to give it a metallic sheen. I wasn't sure how to do this. I did end up spraying it with a glossy clear coat spray paint. You could do this with semi-gloss, you could do it with satin. This is just me shooting it with it, and I just made sure to get everywhere to give it some shine, because this is a metallic Bakugan and it should look like it's shining because it's made of metal. Now, I'm no artist, but this was a lot of fun to make. It's definitely shining in this because I had my ring light right up on it, but it does look good, especially from a distance. It does give it that nice shine that it needs. I feel like the glossy might make it look more wet than it does actual metallic, but it does give a shine it needs, so maybe like a semi-gloss would work better, but I'm overall happy with the results, and it was a lot of fun to paint. It was a great little experiment, and just nice to paint a model. It's really one of the things I enjoy. It's very relaxing, but let me know what you think. And what is your favorite mechanical Vexos Bakugan? There's plenty to choose from. Hopefully we'll see Farbaros and Aluz in the future by the creator of these models. And yeah, with that, I will see you all in the next video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to leave a like, drop a comment, and of course, subscribe for more awesome Bakugan content. Peace out.